co-host First Things First, Nick Wright, joins us. It is, it's a fun game to play. I know you're perplexed by that. It did make me laugh.
No, I didn't see the Mannix interview. I'm curious if you asked him if he'd still rather have Brad Stevens than Giannis. I'm curious about that. But here's the deal. You posited Kyrie for Anthony Davis.
I did.
And I simply believe you can't give up Anthony Davis and only get back Kyrie Irving. Anthony Davis is too good of a player to only get back Kyrie Irving. So then you and I, we were on your podcast, the only other than Jenkins and Jones volume podcast I listen to. I know it's old media, Colin, but I'm not yet to download the old Draymond Green show. And I was like, well, let's continue it. If you want to really shake the snow globe, so to speak, I think the way you would do it is the Lakers have to get more. So you would have to include Anthony Davis, or you would have to include Ben Simmons, and then you would see if the Nets would want Russell Westbrook either as an expiring contract, as a piece to flip elsewhere, or just as a guy to see if you could make it work. The reason that I said it was because I don't think, Colin, that it is responsible to trade Anthony Davis straight up for Kyrie Irving. I don't think that at this point the Lakers would, even with Kyrie, they still wouldn't have enough shooting to deal with the fact that now you are a team that got rid of its best defensive player. The reason the Simmons part of it works is because you're adding a defensive player. And with respect to my buddy Chris Mannix, who's absolutely the best in the business when it comes to boxing. Obviously, his basketball takes could use a little bit of work. With respect to Mannix, what I would say is, do the Nets not have a 10-hour meeting about that? That, guys, we can get Anthony Davis, and what we are giving up is Kyrie Irving, who might not want to be here anymore, and Ben Simmons, who's never played for us. Yeah. Even if it was Kyrie for Ben Simmons, Kyrie and Ben Simmons just for Anthony Davis, they talk about it. People get hung up on the Westbrook part of it. That's not the point, but it's not going to happen. Right. Lakers are going to be cheap, and they're going to stick with Russ. It's going to be a disaster. Well, that's probably what's going to happen. You're
probably right. So Draymond Green, he had a press conference. His own press conference. Yeah. Whatever. Well, Nick gets Durant all worked up. He's got Draymond worked up. So how do you defend yourself there?
Well, all right, let me just do it in reverse order. First of all, Draymond, I'm not sure what section of new media classes you're in yet, but it is important to be accurate. I did not switch to the Dubs. It was worse than that. I started with the Dubs, then switched away from them. So I wasn't talking all this trash on Golden State and then flipped to them. No. I said going into the finals, I thought Steph would win Finals MVP, average close to 35 a game, and the Warriors would win because the Celtics would melt down at the end of fourth quarters. That was exactly right. Unfortunately, after 2 games, I flipped. So, Draymond, it's worse than what you think it's at, so I didn't switch to the Warriors. As far as to the first thing, I have 2 points on the Andrew Wiggins thing. The first one is this. I am out of pounds of flesh to give up for a bad take from 2.5 years ago. I apologize for it. I said I was wrong. I tweeted it out. I now got to hear Draymond podcasting about it, DL Hughley TikToking about it, like I was the only person who 3 years ago said, hey, Andrew Wiggins, that's a bad contract for a disappointing player. And I'm really annoyed, even more annoyed than with Draymond, with other media members who had the same Andrew Wiggins take as me and are using me as some type of meat shield so I get all the Andrew Wiggins criticism. Like everyone else was like, oh, Wiggins, that's a great player, high motor, awesome efficiency, hell of a contract. Nobody thought that. That's second of all. And third of all is this. When Draymond says stand on this, and again, I am welcoming in all forms of media, and me, a member of old media, maybe can help some of the new media. It is important to admit when you are wrong, and it is easy to do so when you're wrong as rarely as I am. I was clearly wrong. I said Steph would never make another finals. Well, he just won finals MVP. So when he says stand on it, stand on what? I'm Wile E. Coyote looking down. There's no ground beneath me. Nothing to stand on. I was wrong.
Yeah.
I am, as Draymond would say, I'm man enough to admit it. Now, hopefully, Colin, since again, Draymond, works for you, you can maybe set up a meeting of the minds.
Yeah.
We can each share a glass of Lobos tequila and figure out, what we agree and disagree on. I think we should be able to do that.
I think you both have a passion for professional basketball. It would be great. You were right, by the way, you've been right for years on the Celtics, that you just don't feel like they've hoarded picks and they don't make big moves. They tried the Kyrie thing, didn't work. So when you love this sport, and more than anybody I know, and I love it, but it doesn't compare to you, give me your sort of, I don't want to overreact. It's funny, I said after watching the playoffs, I don't know what to make of the Phoenix Suns. They can't play from behind. I wouldn't pay DeAndre Ayton. I'm not even sure if they're in my top 5, and I thought they were going to win the championship. So the playoff basketball really does illustrate the truth about the NBA, which is you need veterans. You got to be able to play ahead or behind. For years, Milwaukee could play downhill, but not from behind. And then Giannis and Middleton were able to do it, and they won a title. So give me your look at next year in the NBA.
Well, when it comes to Boston, and then I'll extrapolate from there. If I'm Boston, I don't overreact to falling apart at the end of the finals. As you see it, I think they're one of the 6 best teams going into next year. And there's a lot of data on that screen there. But I think Boston's got a young team aside from Horford. They're all under contract. You've got to hope that Tatum gets a little stronger with the ball and stronger physically, that if he gets 10% better and Brown gets 10% better, then you're right there in the East, with the exception of, I believe Milwaukee was going to roll the world in these playoffs if Middleton doesn't get hurt. They damn near beat the Celtics without Middleton.
Yeah.
I think Milwaukee's the prohibitive favorites. I think right now, the Warriors are the betting favorites. I'm not going to act like they can't win the title, but I don't think they are the favorites to me coming out of the West. I think the Clippers and the Mavs, and Colin, I've never been a believer in the Clippers, and I've never been wrong about the Clippers.
Right.
And this year, I do believe in the Clippers.
Yeah.
I think Kawhi, with a year of rest, is going to be dynamic. I love Ty Lue. And then next to him, I have the Mavs. Luka Doncic is only going to get better.
Yeah.
This summer, he doesn't have the Olympics to deal with. I like the Christian Wood addition. I think they're going to keep Brunson. So and the Grizzlies series, the Grizzlies took them 6, lost game 1 on a buzzer beater or a missed buzzer beater, and Ja didn't play 3 games. So to me, those are the clear-cut 4 best teams in the West. We'll see how healthy Denver is. We'll see what the Lakers do.
Yeah.
But I think out East, Boston shouldn't overreact to a bad finals, but also should be realistic. That Giannis, I guess I would think about it like this, Colin. In the next 7 years, I think Giannis is going to be in the finals 5 times.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be a whole bunch of Eastern Conference championships available. Boston got one this year, and then they couldn't close the deal.
Let's finalize this with a football take.
Yeah.
I said, word association with Gronk is great, fun, lively, huge. But I also said the NFL is asking different things of their coaches now. You got to be able to draft offensive talent, design offenses, and develop it. That's why Sean McVay keeps winning divisions and getting to Super Bowls. That's what the league demands. Gronk is the last great offensive player drafted by New England. And instead of fixing the offense, they brought Joe Judge and Matt Patricia over to help with the offense. That's not the answer.
Yeah, that's not great.
That's not great. And when I think of Gronk, I said this before to you privately, and I don't know if I've said it to you in a discussion. This would make you happy. I said, sports determine really what wins and what doesn't. At one point in hockey, you had to be physical. You could grab and clutch. They got rid of that. Now it's speed. Who's got speed? Baseball now, get power hitters. Strikeouts are irrelevant. You don't want ground balls. Guys that can hit it in the air. Football has determined you got to be able to draft, design, and develop offense because you can't hit the quarterback. You can't hit receivers. The middle of the field now is not defense like the 70s, 80s, 90s. It is the offense. And that if the NFL would have done this 15 years ago, we'd call Andy Reid the best coach. We would not call Belichick the best coach. And if Belichick and Reid both coach for 6 years from this moment on, we're going to look at the last decade of Belichick and Reid. By the way, Reid, the only coach that's had Belichick's number, and we're going to go, are we sure Belichick's the best coach? And so I guess I'm long-winded. Gronk is illustrating a reality that it wasn't a Brady-Belichick divorce. It's a Brady-Gronk-Belichick divorce. He didn't design that relationship. He didn't develop that relationship. Tom and Gronk did.
Well, listen, I think a lot of what you're saying is fair. I also think what should be acknowledged, they won 6 Super Bowls in New England with Brady and Belichick. The first 3, they won not because of the offense, but in some ways despite the offense, as great as Brady was for that 3rd Super Bowl. Like, Belichick made his name on the defensive side of the ball, and with the Giants was unbelievable on defense, and with New England through about 2006, those were defensive teams until they added Moss and Brady became this new version of himself. I do agree with you that the game is evolving, and I think it's hard to evolve when you're almost 70 and when the people around you are friends and family as opposed to fresh new blood. And so I think that is a weakness for the Patriots. And we all laughed at the Patriots war room being Belichick hanging out with his dog, but there is an element of, the wisdom of crowds and having as many good brains available to you as possible. I don't know the Patriots do that. And it's one thing to go your own way if you're the most successful. But drafting-wise, they have not been. And drafting-wise, they have a lot more misses than hits over the last decade. So maybe the way other teams are doing it is smarter. As far as Andy Reid being the best, you know how much I love Andy. But not unless NFL's going to go to a clockless format where you're managing. You know what? We're not going to keep time. As long as there's time, Andy's going to have some struggles. Can I say one thing quickly about Gronk's retirement?
Sure.
Because like so many things in sports, it all started going bad with Michael Jordan. And by that I mean this. Once upon a time, Colin, you know what retired meant? Retired. You were done, except for boxers. And then Jordan retired, unretired, retired, unretired, retired again. So then Tom Brady's like, well, I'm a GOAT. I can do that same thing. I'll retire and then come back 6 weeks later. Now Gronk's is his 2nd retirement, and nobody actually thinks he's retiring. Everyone's like, when's Gronk coming back? It's like, dude, he just retired. So here's what I propose, Colin. It's a 5-year wait to make the Hall of Fame once you retire from any sport. You get an extra year tacked on it for every fake retirement. So Brady, now it's going to be 6 for him. Gronk, it's 7 years. If you come back, you got to wait 7 years post-final retirement. Each fake retirement, we're tack a year on the wait list. The word needs to mean something again. Well, you know what I mean? Once upon a time, retirement meant I'm going to go play golf and hang out. Now it means I'll see you in 6 weeks back playing. Don't like it. Don't like it at all.
Nick Wright. He's got a podcast, What's Right, with Nick Wright. Son's on it. Great seeing you as always, buddy. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.